Good morning and welcome to the new edition of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. Just a few days back, I was amazed to read the statement by the Secretary General of Portugal. Of course, I did not expect anything better from a person who has been the foreign minister of a former colonial power, Portugal. And Portugal, when it was a colonial power, was known for its brutality in Africa and in Goa. Anyway, leaving the old things aside, his statement shows how out of sync the Honorable Secretary General of United Nations is. And maybe very appropriately, because the whole of the concept of the United Nations is out of sync with the harsh realities of today, it having become irrelevant. You might be amazed, thinking at least, that what do I mean by zero, G0 world? Well, we are witnessing a deluge of the acronyms G20, the 20 big words, G7, G8, and now proposed by President Trump G10 or G11, how G7 can be expanded. But reality is that we are moving towards G0 world where no country is great enough to be counted as one. There was a time when there used to be G1, that was historic England, when Britannia ruled the waves. Not so. Then came USA after the breakdown of USSR. It was G1. Not anymore. The withdrawal policies and necessary isolation trend that is witnessed. And then, secondly, the rise of nationalism, the nationalist feelings all over the world. Whether it's Austria, whether it's Tibet, Taiwan, or India, or USA, make your country great, make America great, made in India, and so on are the slogans rending the world. So we are moving, fast moving from G20s to G7s, G11s to G0 world. Well, I can't help coining words. And Z0 word means no country has enough power to influence or construct a global framework for cooperation. There was a time when USA was ruling the rules, and whatever US said was accepted as the gospel truth. China is trying to be there, but it has a fierce opposition from India, Australia, and USA. The Europe is not that inimical, but Europe will not tolerate China to be ever in number one position. G20, G0 essentially also means that no actor has set a direction in the world. No country has a director. The US, and to be clear, only the US retains enough influence even today to create such a shared agenda or to reform the existing ones to make them fit for the purpose. When effective global leadership eventually re-emerges, and I have no hope that one day it would re-emerge. It might be a bipolar word, it might be a tripolar word, but ultimately there has to be global leadership. And as I had discussed earlier, and we say a multipolar leadership, say India and China leading Asia, USA leading America, Germany and France leading Europe, Israel leading Middle East, South Africa leading Africa, and of course Australia and New Zealand are countries by themselves, they lead themselves, but they will not be independent that way. So basically, when the world can get to work, building a better system. And I won't call it a globalized system, I'll call it a multilateral system, which will be underpinned by a common interest and a sense of shared responsibility. Today, the interest is not common. The globe also failed miserably to fight coronavirus. That's a sign of the failure of globalization. The only benefit of globalization has been the economic recessions that plague the world every few years. So, when there is no underpinning of the common interest, there is no sense of shared responsibility as well. Each country wants to shed its responsibility. So, in the meantime, what's required is that the political leaders must do something to keep the present multilateral system flawed as it is, limited as it is, but to keep it alive and viable. But if you have seen this year's gathering of the world's leader in the United Nations Assembly in New York was called off. The news of the cancellation, and it happened for the first time in the 75 years of US history. That came exactly a week after the G7 meeting in Camp David was scrapped, and a month after, the G20 abandoned plans for a virtual summit. So the G20s, G7s apparently have outlived their utility, and so has United Nations. So this cancellation of G20, G7, and the World Leaders Jamboree in New York shows that there is pressing challenge than are apparent today. And the instruments of multilateralism are not just underperforming, they have stopped functioning. Globalization concept is dead as dodo. So it has to arise like phoenix. The phoenix used to arise from its ashes, and from the ashes of the globalization would come out multilateralism, each country having relationship with multiple countries with a shared interest. That's the most important thing. And the shared responsibility. When you share responsibility and you share interest, there's a common interest in promoting your interest. And there's a healthy competition. It's not that one leader is there. All of you sit together and formulate policies for the optimum utilization of resources, for the maximum good of the maximum number of people. At least that's the theory. As a matter of fact, the implications of the globalization having stopped working, having become deader, even worse. WHO, we have seen how they did. USA has not only withdrawn from WHO, it has also withdrawn from Human Rights Commission. It has also withdrawn from the International Court of Justice. And as a matter of fact, it is high time that other responsible countries also do so. But coronavirus epidemic or pandemic is an unprecedented public health crisis that demanded cooperative action and that failed, at least in one area, that is development of a vaccine. They should have collaborated. And we have been hearing that vaccine is nearing completion from England, from India, from USA. And I can assure you there'll be no vaccine before 2021. Absolutely not, in spite of all the news that are coming. You would say it because all those statements that vaccine is around the corner is to lull people to sleep. And the process of the clinical trials and then the human trials is so long and justifiably long. It's not possible to have the vaccine today. But if all the scientists all over the world had unified, started working in tandem, then the things could have been expedited. Even the test of one vaccine, instead of being in one country, could have been done in the multiple countries, and it could have been seen how the results are there. Then the severe economic slump since the Great Depression will probably put up an unprecedented global debt bubble. Canadian debt has crossed $1 trillion. It is unthinkable. And only today morning, IMF warned that the depression, the recession this time, is going to be much worse than it was thought to be. But this is only the beginning of the world's woes. This is not the penultimate end. The geopolitical tensions are on the rise all over the world. Whether it's Korean Peninsula, Indo-China problem, and now building of Yeti in the Yeti region by India, which is definitely going to provoke China. And as I wrote in my article today only, that is one of the reasons that the Chinese blinked, because they could not imagine India going on the offensive. For the first time possibly, India started building a road in area which is basically that of Tibet. Indirectly, they are encouraging Tibet to grow up and demand autonomy. Well, no government is going to accept it, but that's the reality. Otherwise, you going and building a road without the permission of China into an area controlled by China and which you are accepted at once as a part of China is unheard of. Japan has started coming out openly against China. Australia has done so. The United States and China. So all over. And just today morning the news came that the India's dream project, Chabha port, has been cancelled. And China and Iran have thrown India out of the whole thing. And only China has given $400 billion to Iran to build the road and Chabha port. That's going to be another spark which can inflame people. And the transatlantic alliance is under severe strain. The US president's decision to withdraw troops from Germany is the latest sign of the anger on both sides. Then the strategic competition in Arctic is escalating. Climate action remains inadequate. Outer space is being militarized. For the first time, we are militarizing space. US has a space command already. China has satellites roaming all over already. India has not professed it, but is doing so. And the onward march of transformative technologies like artificial intelligence is generating serious and potentially dangerous uncertainty in the world. So each of these developments individually would be worrying enough. Taken together, they imply a catastrophic risk. And if there was a moment when multilateralism was needed, it is today. And I don't doubt it will get it. But it will be on a different level. Today's G0 world, no country is great enough. All are zeros. And there is no cipher among the zeros. And there is unfortunately no leader who possesses the will, the vision, and influence to take a lead in establishing multilateralism. Even India's all progress is on a bilateral basis, not on a multilateral basis. The only thing, the only instance of a multilateral activity has been the Quad, where India, Japan, Australia, South Korea, and Israel, and on the side Africa, came together and set up a Quad, but it's more a policy taking and not a decision making body. But then, are we confronted with a Hobbesian future defined by intense competition and narrow nationalistic self interest. What we require is to make do with what is possible. Bury globalization. Absolutely, I'm against it. But do what is possible, pursue a multilateral approach that is more organic, bottom up, and more relevant. As a matter of fact, that would be instrumental in making the country and the world as a whole. What we must do is the better use the coalitions for a willing public-private partnerships and a civil society participation. Till now, all efforts at the globalization were at the governmental level. There was no civil society participation. What is required is, in the new multilateralism, a civil society participation and a public private partnership. The, if we look at the trends, the people around the world are busy, the leaders, dismantling Trump withdrew from climate and justifiably, most of the time they justify. And then WHO failed miserably, as we said. Human Rights Commission is a joke. All the countries with the absolutely horrible Human Rights Commission are the board. They constitute the board. South Africa, Tunisia, China, Pakistan. And at this rate, you would see that, like a building, the multilateral framework is much easier to demolish, and it has been demolished, the globalization. But it can be rectified. It is up to the leaders to ensure, and not only leaders, but as I said earlier, the civil society, that the existing framework of the global cooperation, which is essential for the bottom up multilateralism. So the same actions can be used to rebuild. The first stop is that the way to do is that the international organizations have truly competent leaders, not the sort of Secretary General that we have or the Director General of WHO we have. We need people who mean business. You remember the days of Tagwili and Dag Hammarskjöld and you thought when they used to be the Secretary General of UN. They really meant business, honest power brokers, impartial to the core, objective, dedicated to humanity. But now what we have done is that the powerful countries are using institutions like their fiefdoms. For example, even the latest example of USA trying to have an American as a head of the Inter-American Development Bank, and that's happened for the first time. Again, there's nothing wrong because America is giving the maximum money. The ongoing process of selecting a new World Trade Organization can be the starting point. It's a crucial opportunity to change the practice given the need of internationalizing trade for the benefit of the civil society. And if such pandering sounds cynical and anathema to the good governance, let it be. The issue is today survival of the mankind, not perfection. Eventually, leadership would emerge at the multilateral level, and that would work for a better multilateral system. As I said, underpinned by shared interest and shared responsibility. So the need is today to bid goodbye to globalization. Let's bury it. It is thinking. It is failed. But to build up multilateral system so that the civil society is an active partner in the growth of not of one country, but of the group of the countries. And that would make the world alive and viable, the economic systems more stable, planned, easygoing, and useful. The need of the public private partnership as an adjunct to multilateralism would be ideal. But would the leaders have the vision and the will to do it. They might have vision, but do they have the will to do it? So both the desire and will and capacity that is required. Am I expecting too much? I don't know. But if more right thinking people start thinking on the same lines, then there is hope for the world. Thank you.